They've sometimes been called Islamic mystics or Zoroastrians, but the name that we will be knowing them by and that they're known by worldwide are the Sufis. That faith tradition is the focus of Austin Faith Dialogue today, and you're welcome to join us.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of the show. And today we're turning our attention to Sufism. It's a movement that has been not one religion or one doctrine, but an essence of many religions. And it's that which we're turning to because it's in Austin as well as throughout the world. We're delighted to welcome two folks who are part of the community here. And we welcome, first of all, Bettina Sheets as the Sufi regional representative and Chris Harlan as the Sufi Austin representative. We welcome you not just as representatives, but as guests of this show.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
And I think that in the literature that you shared with me, Bettina, before the show, it was an indication that you all don't see yourself as a separate religion or denomination.
That's true.
But tell us what Sufism is from your standpoint.
It's a way of life. It's a way of looking at the world and understanding yourself in relationship to the world that encourages one to incorporate love, harmony, and beauty, I guess, into your life. It honors all the world traditions and I guess holds utmost of importance to the individual having a relationship with the divine being, whatever name they choose to apply to that being. But to honor whatever path it is that a person might take in order to enter into a relationship with the divine.
Okay. Now, in the books on comparative religion, Sufism is usually put in the chapter on Islam.
Correct.
And that the term first arose in the 8th century in Syria among the Islamic folks there. And as sort of the mystical branch of Islam, as it's sometimes defined.
For the most part, it's very much associated with Islam, and there are Sufi orders that are very Islamic at their core. The Sufi Order International is not that strictly associated with Islam, although it is a very revered religion. But there are, like I said, multitudes of Sufi orders.
Okay. Now, Chris, you didn't grow up Sufi.
No, I grew up in the Protestant faith and came to the Sufi order when I was in my late 20s. It answered a need for me for a larger, more ecumenical view that I could still hold my Christian faith, and yet honor the faiths of all the people of the earth at the same time. Learn about and honor the different prophets that had brought the message of the divine to the different peoples at the different times.
And following the path of the Sufi does not require that one gives up one's original or home religion.
You have folks in your group here who maintain their church membership?
Oh, yes.
Otherwise?
Yes.
Okay.
I've actually served as an elder in a church while maintaining Sufi order activities as well. So.
All right. So inclusiveness is part of it, or maybe the major part of it in terms of being the oneness of...
I think what is seen or realized and appreciated is that if a person were to truly follow any one religion, they would achieve their goal of reaching the divine.
Well, now, I have to tell you that I first saw you folks dancing.
Yes.
It was not at the Broken Spoke, but it was at the Austin Metropolitan Ministries Thanksgiving community service.
Right.
It was out at the Hindu temple last November. And there you were dancing.
Yes.
So how come you're doing that there? Were you there, Chris? Did
Well,
you?
I didn't attend the Hindu temple, but I had attended several of the other Thanksgiving worship services in years past. And we do dance every time that we participate in those. And it's a way to come together joyfully and share the sacred phrases of the different world religions and sing and move together and see the divine beauty manifest in the faces and the joy of those that we participate with.
So now, again, going back to the comparative religions studies, say that the whirling dervishes in the 12th century were an expression of Sufism at that time. Ecstatic whirling and dancing, and this carries over into what you're doing. I mean, this is part of the tradition of Sufism, is the dancing.
Yes, the term Sufism really came into use and familiarity with the coming of the Islamic tradition. But the ideas and the concepts and the teachings existed long before any organized religion. And so what happens in any given community is that Sufism, through the way that it honors the path that people are taking as individuals, it sort of adjusts and modifies. And the dances of universal peace are something that have arisen from our American culture, and it's something that people can participate in. It's very simple movements, and it feels very at home, I think, for a lot of people. It's not intimidating or frightening.
No, it's not terribly different from folk dancing and other folk traditions that we're used to in our culture.
Should I say that Sufism likes to suffuse itself through the culture and faith traditions to give it a certain spirit and a vitality that is, you're looking for a common spirit or
A common spirit and wisdom.
Okay.
Wherever there's wisdom, that's valued. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, I have to just backtrack a little bit again because I know that from those who have studied the faith traditions I've read it have put the emphasis on union with the divine.
Yes.
I mean, mysticism as the union with God. And I guess this is what would still be the principle, the essence, as your literature says today.
Yes.
Except that it's been brought to the West.
Right.
Something about, what happened in 1910? There was something in the literature about that.
Yes, a man by the name of Hazrat Inayat Khan came from India to the West in 1910, and his mission, I guess, if you will, was to bring these teachings to Western cultures. And because a lot of it is basically, the seed of a lot of it is in more Eastern religions. And so that was his mission, was to bring that over here. And there are several books and things that he wrote to explain his understanding of a way to live that is in harmony with the divine being, in a way for individuals to experience the divine directly, not through a mediator or a church organization or anything. But
now, if you came from India, you associate that country with Hinduism or Buddhism. Was he from those faith traditions, or was it something that independent of what is usually associated with India?
Well, he was raised in the Islamic tradition, but he was schooled with Hindus, and he studied with the Christians as well. And so he already had a deep reverence and respect for the wisdom and faith of the different religions that were in India and that he had grown up around. And he brought that feeling of reverence with him, and the unity of the religious ideals with him when he came to the West.
And where in the West did he come?
well, I believe he first arrived at Ellis Island.
Oh, really? Which is in New Jersey, I
Which is now in New Jersey.
Okay. And then fanned out into the
Yes.
country from there,
Yes.
the East Coast.
He was actually a highly acclaimed musician in India, and so his initial trips with his brothers and cousins were to perform Indian music, and that was the sort of the vehicle for him to come to the West and make connections and be able to express his ideas.
Okay. We have a logo. We have a little
Yes.
drawing that you've brought. Let's take a look at that and see if you can give us some interpretation of that.
Yes, that's the heart and wings. The idea is that it is in the heart where one experiences the divine being, and the star in the center of the heart is the divine light, which is reflected in the heart of every being. The crescent moon is indicative of the rising moon. As its receptivity to the divine light, it becomes fuller. And then the wings represent the heart that does fly to the divine when it is open to,
Oh, I
to
see.
the light.
Mm-hmm. So it's it takes off from that
Yes,
that
it
that
soars.
center. Okay. And we also have just want to make sure that we get in this first half of the show some indication of how folks can get a hold of you, and I believe the monitor will have a number here that folks can call at 2800689, and that you meet in the community room of. Tell us about that. Where that is.
There's a restaurant called Casa de Luz, and they have a community room which we rent for our meetings, and it's on Toomey Road, not far from Zachary Scott Theater.
In that same
And the
area.
Cielo room is the particular room in their community center that we use for our activities.
Mm-hmm. The Cielo room.
Cielo.
Cielo. Okay.
It's Spanish for the sky.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, now, if folks want to, visit one of your services, and I think in the second half we'll talk about sort of the variety of those services, they're free to come there.
Very much.
And you don't have services every Sunday, but every other Sunday.
Second and fourth.
Second, fourth.
Yes.
What time is that?
Services start at 10:45.
Okay. And how long do they last?
Depends on who's preaching. Usually over about noon or 12:30.
Okay. And then you have other during the week activities, and I think I'll kind of review those with you when we come back. But I do think that the emphasis on dancing is something which it shows that there's an artistic aspect to it, the spiritual as it's expressed in bodily movement and
Yes.
rhythm. And I say that do we live to dance or dance to live? And that's the question that we'll answer when we come back on the second half of Austin Faith Dialogue. Stay with us today as we're talking with folks from the Sufi order. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today we are visiting with a couple of folks from the Sufi community here in Austin. The Sufi Order International finds its local expression with Bettina Sheets as the regional representative for that group and Chris Harlan as the Austin representative. And in the first half, we were looking basically at the principle and what it is that gives Sufism its heart. and leading people into an appreciation of all faith traditions. As we begin this half, I would like to read from your June calendar.
Okay.
I was looking for some religious literature, so here's your calendar. On the first Monday, you have the Hope Project fundraiser. On the first and third Thursdays, you have Sufi meditation and Sufi dancing, respectively. On the second and fourth Sundays, as you mentioned earlier, you have universal worship. And on the last Friday of the month, you have the Iroquois Green Corn Festival. And then on the second and fourth Thursdays, Gatha and Geetha. Now, my friends, clarify that for me, if you would please, as to how, well, first of all, what these various activities are and how it all hangs together. Let's begin with the Hope Project fundraiser.
The Hope Project is a service in Calcutta that was formed by the Sufi Order International. It started off originally as a milk fund for children in one of the poorest sections of town, and now has grown to offering several different kinds of services, along with even some training, basic education of the children, vocational training for parents. And the person who is the director of this center there in India is coming to town, and we're having a fundraiser, and people, for the most part in our community, are paying some money to get together, raise money, and learn more about what has actually been happening the last few years at the Hope Project.
So the project is to meet hunger needs. I mean,
yes, and it's in a section of town that serves Hindus and Muslims and Buddhists, and
I see.
It's a very diverse group, and it's a continuation of our message of reaching out and recognizing everyone as one aspect of the divine.
So what that says to me is that you folks are not simply into meditation and to the devotional side of your faith practice, but you're into ethical practice or practical kinds of things. Have you experienced that?
Well, I think that as we practice our faith, that it brings up the need to reach out into our community and meet the needs that we see, each of us individually, in our own way within the community. And in this aspect, there is the organization of the Hope Project.
And do you, locally in Austin, have something that would say would be the counterpart to that as far as what you do together?
We don't have an organizational body that does the same kind of outreach as the Hope Project. We each, I think, many of the people, if not all of the people active in the Sufi Order here in Austin, are social workers, or we work with the community to help fill the needs of the people in the community, each however we feel drawn to do that.
And you're individualized, in other words.
Exactly.
Before the show, Chris, when I raised or mentioned the terms about the second and fourth Thursdays, Gatha and Geetha, your eyes lit up. Why was that?
Well, that's a time when the people who are members of the Sufi Order can come together and meditate and do practices together. It's a wonderful joining of spirits for the evening of learning and sharing.
Well, what do the terms mean?
Well, I think I'll defer to Bettina on this exact definition.
They just refer to the texts, the teachings that are associated in the Gatha papers are sort of the beginning learning stages, and the Geetha papers are a little more advanced in their understanding of where the person is at a developmental level.
I see. Would these be like scriptures?
They're the writings of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who we talked about in the first half. They're his teachings, and sometimes they're the talks that he gave to his students, and then they're just passed on to us in written form.
I see. Okay. So the one who brought Sufism to the West has left you this legacy of his writings.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well now let's talk about what goes on with your Sufi meditation on the first Thursday and your dancing on the third. Let's start with the meditation. What do you do on that night?
Both of those nights are open to anyone in the community, in the general public. It's an opportunity. The first Thursday is an opportunity to learn something about meditation, learn something about stilling the mind. There can be selections from various world religions that might be read, or practices in light, focusing on light or visualizations, things to help people get in touch with a more relaxed and spiritual side of themselves that they probably don't bring to the core in the busy pace of their everyday lives. And the third Thursday then is the Dances of Universal Peace, which is frequently referred to as Sufi dancing. And it's another form of meditation. It's a moving meditation, in that it's simple folk rhythm kinds of dance movements that are done by the people who participate. It doesn't require any training. There are sacred phrases repeated and sung as the group moves, generally in a circle. And it's just an opportunity to feel that sense of ecstasy with your whole being.
And then do you, what you learn in that setting, do you then use like on Sundays at your universal worship services? Is that sort of transferred from one part of your life to the other?
Well, sometimes the dances are incorporated into the universal worship service, but the worship service is designed to be a place where people from all faiths could come together and feel at home and recognize the similarities rather than focusing on the distinctions and differences. So to celebrate what we have in common rather than looking for the divisions.
Okay.
You want to add about universal worship? She also participates in the service.
Well, I think that we do read from the different books, the different holy books of the world religions, and that we just focus on the similarities, as you said, the unity of the ideals of each of the world religions.
So you would have the Bible and the Quran and
Absolutely.
the Hindu scriptures and so on.
The Buddhist, yes. Jewish, right.
Okay. Well, now, during the break, you were telling me that you do have ordained folks in your midst, of whom you are one.
Yes.
And you had training for that, and have a means by which some are given that leadership recognition.
Right. Yes, in order to conduct the service. It's not required that you be initiated into all of the activities that go on in the Sufi Order International, but folks who do the Universal Worship Service have been ordained to lead that service.
And then the Iroquois Green Corn Festival.
Yes, if you look through our calendars, they're generally celebrations of a variety of traditions. And we try to just note on the calendar whenever there's a special day in any tradition. And so we don't have anything in particular planned for that day in the way of an organized activity, but it's just a reminder of our
so you
brotherhood,
have Easter and
sisterhood.
Christmas and Passover and other main observances of other faith traditions, just to be mindful of those.
Right. To be respectful of our...
Okay, well now what about the role of Muhammad? Is there any distinctive place given to him insofar as that there were Islamic origins to your Sufism, or is Muhammad considered just along with the rest of the great religious leaders as a source of inspiration?
I would say that each of the religious leaders, the prophets, are regarded with the utmost of honor, and that along with the others, Muhammad is regarded with that high honor as well.
But not necessarily first among the prophets, or as is sometimes referred to in the Shiite or the Sunni branches of Islam.
You may find other Sufi orders that are more as I mentioned earlier, more traditionally Islamic. But the Sufi Order International strives to recognize the message behind whomever it is that brought that message.
Well, I have to say that when you describe your openness to other world religions or faith traditions, it brings to mind the Hindus who say, as part of their approach, everyone is heading toward the same goal, going up toward this top of this mountain, but taking different paths there. And it reminds me of the Baha'is, who put a large emphasis upon incorporating all the various world traditions in their emphasis, like the Baha'i Temple in north of Chicago in Wilmette. Anyone who's visited there sees that's their approach. How are you different from the Baha'is and the Hindus?
I guess in part it's because there is not an attempt to start another religion, but merely the attempt to provide an accommodation for all paths. So there's not an attempt to move anyone away from the religion that they are affiliated with. And in fact, what happens frequently is that people that come to the Universal Worship Service are sort of reinvigorated, or they rediscover the meaning behind the religion that they grew up in.
And they might go back a better Presbyterian, is that what you're saying?
They go back more rejuvenated, I guess, and full of searching for the meaning rather than the structure.
Okay. That it revitalizes their spiritual life and gives them some meditative experience, and maybe even they can take back the emphasis that you have on dance to their faith tradition. That somehow David dancing before the ark, and the Shakers have had the emphasis on dancing is inseparable from faith. The Lord of the Dance, the current hymn, and you have your own music that you dance to.
They're sacred phrases taken from different religions. And it's what we find is that it's just when you're filled with the spirit and the ecstasy of the divine, it's hard to be still.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's one thing we can take with us today is you're giving us that combination of the still small voice and yet the wonder and the joy of the Spirit. And we want to thank you both, Bettina, Chris, for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
And like for folks to tune in next week on Austin Faith Dialogue, I'm Richard Thompson with Austin Metropolitan Ministries, and peace be with you.